Titans, I know a lot of you have been struggling for prismatic builds, but I've got you. Today I'm bringing you an incredible build that is S tier for both bosses and clearing ads. We paired two exotics together so that you can fire rockets infinitely without reloading and do some insane damage to bosses and gain a 35% damage bonus whilst doing so. This damage bonus also applies to our ad clear weapon so that you can benefit from the build even when clearing ads. I'll place a link in the description or comments below. So the exotic chest piece that lies at the heart of this build is the new Titan exotic chest piece Hazardous Propulsion. Hazardous Propulsion gives you stacks of Exodus rocket every time you get a kill or a precision hit, up to a maximum of 6 stacks. When you use your class ability after gaining these stacks, it releases a volley of rockets dealing pretty good damage in actuality. The more important benefit is that for 10 seconds afterwards, depending on the number of stacks you gained, you gain a bonus to rocket weapon damage up to 35% for 6 stacks. Now the crazy thing about this rocket weapon damage is that it applies to other weapons apart from just rocket launchers. Rocket sidearms like the Call and Indebted Kindness benefit from this, even Grand Overture's Missile Volley benefits from the damage as well. This 35% damage bonus is huge, and it stacks with other buffs, like Radiant. We pair this with the exotic rocket launcher, the Two-Tailed Fox, which with the catalyst fires a volley of 3 rockets per shot. Now the Void Rocket applies suppression to enemies, so we take advantage of the fragment facet of command, which states that freezing or suppressing targets reloads your equipped weapon. This fragment has no internal cooldown, so we can keep firing our Two-Tailed Fox again and again, and as long as the Void Rocket hits and suppresses the enemy, it will automatically reload your weapon, so you can actually fire off all 8 rockets or 9 with reserves in a row without reloading, which is some insane damage. You can actually take the damage stacking even further by applying Weaken to enemies. We use a Void Grenade, Suppressor Grenade alongside the fragment Facet of Dominance, which means our Void Grenades now apply Weaken. Weakened enemies receive 15% extra damage from all sources, and then this season with expanding abyss they take even more damage from void sources, which is 25% improved damage instead of 15, for which the Void Rocket of the Two-Tailed Fox volley benefits from. We can also use our super Twilight Arsenal, which is a great source of burst DPS in itself, and it also applies Weaken to enemies. We can also easily add Radiant, which is a further 25% damage buff on top, because this season we have Radiant Orbs, whereby whenever we pick up an orb it makes us radiant. Thanks to Powerful Attraction, whenever we use our class ability we instantly hoover up any nearby orbs, which also ties in perfectly with Hazardous Propulsion. I ended up using Thruster as my class ability because it has the shortest cooldown and it lets you keep up a very mobile playstyle. Because our rocket is automatically reloading, I just didn't feel the need for a Rally Barricade. The damage stacking doesn't stop there. We have Facet of Courage, whereby enemies afflicted by a Darkness debuff take 10% more damage. In this build we use the Strand sidearm, the Call, which does benefit from the 35% damage bonus, and what I've done is gotten a roll, or you can craft one with Slice, because Slice again perfectly synergizes with the build. When we use our class ability, Slice will apply Sever to enemies, which reduces the damage enemies deal by a whopping 40%, helping you survive, and it will also trigger Facet of Courage. In total, with all of our damage buffs, that's a 2.13 times damage buff to our rockets, which is crazy, especially because your DPS will be higher than normal, because you don't need to manually reload each rocket. So the gameplay loop becomes pretty simple. Kill enemies with your rocket sidearm until you get 6 stacks of Exodus rockets. In a DPS phase, use your class ability to fire off your volley of rockets. At this point you'll also have Radiant thanks to any nearby orbs. Quickly throw your Suppression Grenade and fire off one shot of your sidearm to apply Sever. Then keep spamming Two-Tailed Fox. At this point you should have all of your damage buffs active. For ad clear we combine Frenzied Blade, which gives us 3 charges of melee, with Consecration, so we can ignite large groups of enemies with ease. And then we also have our rocket sidearms, the Call and Indebted Kindness, which benefit from the 35% damage buff and are just amazing at clearing ads anyways. They're so good, I actually ended up running double rocket sidearm with this build. The Indebted Kindness had Volt Shot, which made it a little bit better for ads, whereas the Call had Vorpal Weapon, so I used it against slightly stronger enemies. So let's go over the rest of the build. So for our super, we are using Twilight Arsenal, which is a great burst DPS super, and it also applies Weaken. Our class ability is Thruster, we use Catapult Lift, Frenzied Blade, which gives us 3 charges of melee, and Suppressor Grenade for the Weaken. Knockout combined with Consecration are our 2 aspects. For our fragments, we use Facet of Command so we can auto reload our weapons when we suppress enemies. Facet of Protection to stack more damage resistance. Facet of Courage for 10% more damage to enemies which are afflicted by a darkness debuff. Facet of Dominance, so our suppressor grenade applies weaken. And then Facet of Purpose, so whenever we pick up an Orb of Power, we also gain a nice little Void Overshield. In terms of our armor mods, I ran Strand Siphon and Arc Siphon, so my double rocket sidearm loadout benefited from both of those mods, and both of those rocket sidearms could generate orbs. If you don't run a secondary arc weapon, then change this for whatever element you want. But yeah, I do recommend running the cool rocket sidearm at the very least. I also ran one heavy ammo finder, so I generated more heavy ammo bricks for myself. On my gloves, I ran one heavy handed, so my consecration kills generated orbs of power. One focusing strike, so our melee also gave us back thruster ability energy. Then I topped it off with one fastball, so we can really throw our suppressor grenade. On my chest piece, I ran one void reserve, so our two-tailed fox got an extra rocket in reserves, alongside 2 resistance mods based on the activity I'm running. Our boots have 1 recuperation and 2 insulation, so whenever we pick up an orb of power, we gain thruster energy and instantly got some health back. Now usually I'd recommend running Void Surges with Two-Tailed Fox, but because of its interaction with Facet of Command, it doesn't actually benefit from any Surge mods whatsoever. So yeah, don't run any Surge mods with this build. Our class item has Reaper, so we can generate orbs of power after using our class ability. Powerful Attraction, so whenever we do use our class ability, we hoover up any nearby orbs, which will instantly heal us thanks to recuperation, give us Radiant thanks to Radiant Orbs, and give us a nice Void Overshield thanks to Facet of Purpose. I topped it off with a special ammo finisher so we could keep generating ammo for our rocket sidearms. In terms of stat distribution, the number one priority here is 100 resilience, so you gain that 30% damage reduction. Then you want a high discipline stat to reduce your suppressor cooldown, and then you also want a fairly high strength stat to minimize your frenzied blade cooldown so you can use consecration more often. I'll also go over our artifact perks. The important perks here are Void Hegemony, so we can get an overshield from killing weakened enemies, Radiant Orb, so we gain Radiant from picking up those orbs, Expanding Abyss, so we deal more damage against weakened enemies from void sources, and then Shield Crush, so we regenerate our melee and grenade faster, and they deal more damage, as in this build you get both a Void Overshield and Radiant. In terms of other weapon pairings, apart from Two-Tailed Fox, the mandatory weapon you should run here is the Call. The Call I have, it has Slice, which will benefit with Facet of Courage, and I also have Vorpal Weapon for that extra damage against stronger enemies. I did end up running the Indebted Kindness with this, but you don't have to run a second rocket sidearm. Use whatever you want here. So there you have it, my Hazardous Propulsion Prismatic build that is probably one of the most versatile builds out there. It's incredible for clearing ads, it's amazing for boss DPS, it really is the Swiss Army knife of Titan builds. If you enjoyed what I talked about, remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for more Destiny builds, both PvE and PvP. I'm Mr. Ronit, and that's it for today. Peace out, guys.